Wonderful. All right, Vijay, we are at this time where I call them the big three. They are, big picture questions. They're kind of general. Given your time constraint, you can be as liberal with your time or as constricted with your time as you'd like. It does not matter to me. I appreciate what you have to say. We let our interview off with talking about how Rochester was foundational. Obviously, you were a little bit younger then. Now that you're older, you've had a chance to be more worldly, work with all these musicians, live in different places. Looking back on it, and at the times you've been able to visit professionally, whether it's playing, lecturing, or even visiting your folks, as I'm sure you do from time to time, we talked about that it was a chance for musicians to play together and it's foundational for you. But why do you think that might be? What do you think about it is about Rochester that makes it really work for that kind of collaborative musical experience?
Um, there's something about uh, people who come from the smaller cities. I think you could call it a sort of regional mentality, And I see myself as such a person. I'm not from New York City, I've lived there for nearly half my life, but um, I'm a small town guy, you know? And what that means is that uh, you feel this sense of, you feel grounded, you feel like part of a community that's larger than yourself. And you also don't have any illusions about being like God's gift to anything, You're like, well, this isn't bad for Fairport High School. Like it's that kind of thing. This is pretty good for Rochester. Yeah, go team. It's that mentality, which is like it's actually very teaching at Harvard is kind of the opposite, I have to say, in a way that I find toxic, that I have to always sort of break down for people, for students and colleagues, like, just because everyone says you're the best at something, that doesn't make it true. And you have to kind of just take this toxic bestness off the table because you can't, where do you go from there, as an artist, I'm about growth and about transformation and about learning, not about, you can't treat this, a place like this as like this terminus where like, okay, you made it, you're done. Life is long, and you want to keep evolving. So I think maybe just having the very normal, just being so normal, like being in such a normal place, and then living with that reality, like, okay, we're just normal folks, who get to do cool things and try to do better every day. That to me, I mean, it's, and I hope that doesn't sound like a diss, because it's not. It's actually like, it's how most of the world is, you know.
Yeah. I love that. That's a wonderful answer. Next thing I have for you, we went down an incredible list of projects you're working on. You're always working on something new. You're often working on multiple new things all at once. And we talked about some of your big picture goals as an artist, some things you want to accomplish sort of emotionally and philosophically. But I do pose this to every interviewee, of course. You can answer this one of two ways. What would you want your next feather in your cap to be? Or if you had to pick one thing to say, I want to accomplish this before I hang it up, retire, go on to the next plane of existence, whatever it would be, this would be it. So either next feather in your cap or final big accomplishment. Either one you want to comment on, go ahead.
The funny thing is that because I came into a life in the arts kind of late, um, I never treated it like, okay, I'm gonna show them. I'm gonna conquer the world. It was never that. It was always like, wow, I get to do this, They're gonna let me do this. People are gonna buy tickets to this, like they want to buy this album, they want to write about, this kind of stuff. Like it all just feels like a blessing to me. Um, and then I can't remember who said it. It may be Duke Ellington. Someone asked him, "What's your favorite? What you've written so much music? What's your favorite one?" And he said, "The next one." You always, I think he even said something like, "You always have a soft spot for the baby in the family," you know? So it's kind of the care that you put into like whatever you are trying to be present for, or whoever you're trying to be present for. Um, how you show up to whatever you're working on and making that matter most of all. That's a very different mentality than, um, "Oh, I can't wait to have my premiere at the Metropolitan Opera. I'm gonna make that happen." You know, there are such people who think that way. Even like you've probably seen that it was Bruce Lee who like wrote down his goals, going to become an internationally known kung fu star. You know, he said that. He wrote that down. Then it happened. Or like Octavia Butler, the author, she did something like that too. You can see her very early in her life. She sort of set down her goals and then she lived them. So there is that. But in a way, uh, I'm already living them. You know, I feel like I'm I'm blessed and fortunate to be where I am and just want it to continue as long as I'm able.
Wonderful. And our last one, we've touched upon a lot of these themes already. Early on, we asked you about what the lecture is, which in short can be construed as advice for artists. But again, I always end with this one. Do you have any advice for aspiring artists?
Uh, well, the main thing is tell the truth. That's what an artist does. You know, be completely honest with yourself and do the work to go in deep. And then also just keep studying. You know, your if you just, you know, what I'd tell young piano players, for example, who are trying to write their own music is like if you just rummage around on the piano in the same way that you always have, then you're not going to find anything that you haven't already found. You know, you'll just find variations on what you already know. So how do you reach into the unknown? That's the question. What are the questions that you want to ask yourself that will help you do that? And how do you cultivate those kinds of guiding questions that will sustain you for your whole lifetime? You know? So that's the real challenge. And lastly, like learn about the world, understand where you are in it and what you might and think about what you might have to contribute to the planet and to its people.